Have a trade deadline, kids. The Major League Baseball trade deadline was an absolute frenzy. Ended on Friday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Players changing teams by the minute over the last 2 days. A record 10 All-Stars from this season were traded before the deadline. And one of those All-Stars changing teams is Kris Bryant. The four-time All-Star traded to the San Francisco Giants in exchange for two prospects. Bryant spent the first 7 years of his career with the Cubs. He'll be a free agent after this season. Bryant's former Chicago teammate, Javi Baez, also a free agent after this season. The two-time All-Star and Gold Glover dealt to the New York Mets. Will play alongside shortstop Francisco Lindor. Will be over at shortstop until he returns, and he'll slide over to second once Lindor returns from injury. The Mets also acquired starting pitcher Trevor Williams in the deal. Cubs will get back center field prospect Pete Crow Armstrong, who the Mets took in the first round of the 2020 draft. And the Cubs' fire sale continued, trading eight-time All-Star closer Craig Kimbrel to the White Sox. So he goes from the north side to the south side, joining the first-place Pale Hose, where the rich get richer. Kimbrel will team up with All-Star closer Liam Hendriks in an absolute stacked White Sox bullpen. Kimbrel, .49 ERA, 23 saves this season. Also on Friday, Blue Jays, who needed starting pitching help, got help in the form of twin starter Jose Barrios. Toronto sending two of their top prospects to Minnesota in the deal as they look to stay in the wild card race. Barrios has 121 strikeouts this season, and opponents hitting just .213 off of it. Again, this trade deadline was bonkers. I mean, take a look at some of the moves. On Thursday, Max Scherzer was reportedly heading to the Padres. Instead, he went to the Dodgers alongside All-Star teammate Trey Turner. Yankees picking up two lefty bats in Joey Gallo and Anthony Rizzo. Including Rizzo, the Cubs traded 8 of their players, while the Nationals dealt 7 of their players before the deadline. And our own Jim Bowden has experienced a bevy of trade deadlines in his career. And he tweeted this, quote, "Let's just call it what it is, the greatest trade deadline in Major League Baseball history." And that's not hyperbole. I mean, this is real. Welcome in the aforementioned Jim Bowden, former MLB Executive of the Year, CBS Sports Baseball Insider. A record 10 All-Stars from this season traded before the deadline. It was bonkers. But before we get into the specific deals, Jim, give us some more perspective on how wild this deadline was.
We've never seen this many superstar players at one time. Future Hall of Famers like Max Scherzer and Craig Kimbrel. You mentioned the 10 All-Stars that went. But how about the bevy, the flurry of top prospects that were moved? You know, we haven't seen top prospect moves really since the Aroldis Chapman for Gleyber Torres trade. And all of a sudden, in this particular trade deadline, everybody was trading their top 5 prospects. If you were a seller like the Chicago Cubs, you did really well. If you were a seller like the Twins, you kicked butt. So to be able to sit there and watch this many superstars traded, as well as so many of the top prospects in the game. And how about teams that were paying players complete salaries to the New York Yankees? Anthony Rizzo and Joey Gallo, the Yankees don't have to pay them anything this year. The opposing teams are paying their full salaries. The Marlins, the small market Marlins, are paying all of Starling Marte's deal. This is going to be a trade deadline that we'll never forget. In 10 years, 20 years from now, we will look back at this trade deadline and just be stunned and amazed at the amount of talent that was traded, not just at the major league level, but for future stars and prospects that were dealt as well. It was an incredible 48 hours, and it was a lot of fun covering it here on CBS Sports HQ.
Yeah, down the road, let's just not have it like at the same time as the NBA draft, okay? So let's just talk to those people and let's not have it around the NBA draft, okay? Because we need our own 2 days of baseball. The Mets made a splash acquiring Javi Baez. He gets what he wants. He'll get to play alongside his buddy Francisco Lindor. Javi will fill in at short, then slide over to second when Lindor returns from injury, giving the Mets one of the best double play combos in MLB history. Jim, what should we expect from Baez in New York?
Well, you know what you're getting with Baez in terms of an elite defensive player, whether he's playing second, short, and third. And you're talking about an aggressive base runner and a smart base runner, and you're talking about legitimate foul pole to foul pole power. Now, what comes with him is a lot of strikeouts, and what comes with him is a low on-base percentage. That's part of his game. It's not going to change. We've seen him enough. He's completely developed. We know what he is. but he also brings great energy and enthusiasm to every ballpark that he goes to. He lights up every room that you go to. You know, I love covering the Cubs in that World Series run, and the guy I liked interviewing the best the whole time was Javi Baez. There's nobody more fun than Javi, and to watch him and Lindor together, let's call them the swagsters up the middle for the Mets. Nobody's got more swag. No one's more dope. No one's more lit than these two guys. I absolutely love. They're fun to watch, and it's going to be fun watching them turn double plays. There's no question about that. So, look, the Mets did a really good job in acquiring him, but they paid a big price. Just like when they traded Jared Kelenic to Seattle, in giving up Pete Crow Armstrong, they're giving up a future center fielder. They're giving up a future leadoff hitter. This guy is a legitimate prospect that is going to come back and haunt them, especially if they can't re-sign Baez at the end of the year. But they're going for it. They're in first place. They've got a new owner. And look, I'm on board. When you got a chance to win, go for it, and that's what the Mets are trying to do here.
Well, I'll never forget Baez and the Cubs beating Lindor and the Mets as I covered that World Series, talking to my guy, Francisco Lindor, in 2016. Now perhaps they'll team up and win a World Series for the Mets. Also in the deal, the Mets getting starting pitching help in Trevor Williams, which is huge because the news also announced on Friday Jacob deGrom suffered a setback, likely out until September. Jim, what more can you tell us about deGrom's setback, and ultimately, can the Mets rotation sustain without deGrom and hold on to first place in the NL East?
Well, I'm really concerned because the way the Mets are announcing it is they're talking about inflammation in the arm. They didn't say shoulder. They didn't say elbow. They said arm. What, the entire arm's inflamed? I mean, you know, they're not being transparent with the public. So it's hard to really, dissect exactly what's going on here. But the fact that he's been out 3 weeks and they're going to say it's another 2 weeks already, that's a 5-week period of trying to settle down. And that's before throwing. So best case scenario, you're looking at the first week or mid-September. And I guess realistically, and that's best case, that's assuming he doesn't need an operation. That's assuming it's going to settle down. The one thing you always got to be worried about, though, is when you have inflammation, there's a reason why you're inflamed. Something is causing it somewhere. But because they're not giving us any details, it's ridiculous for us to conjecture on what it could be. But certainly, we heard the red flags all year. Every time that he had some soreness, we heard about it. They wouldn't IL him. They wouldn't IL him. They finally have. But at some point, we're going to discover or find out what this is. And again, they haven't told us, so we don't know. But I think what they're going to try to do is, even if he needs an operation, they don't want to do it now because that would end his season. You want to calm him down wherever the injury is. Be prepared to maybe shoot some cortisone wherever the problem is, and see if you can't get him ready for the last 2 weeks of September and hopefully the playoffs in October. But this is a major blow to the Mets' chances of holding off the Phillies and the Braves. Major. And although Trevor Williams replaces him in the rotation, you know, you're still talking about a 4.5 ERA starting pitcher that can keep you in the games for 4 or 5 games, but can't carry you on his shoulders like deGrom can.
All right, let's say that this ends up being good news down the stretch. Let's say that deGrom comes back, all is well. He does come back in September. They're also hoping to get Noah Syndergaard back in September. Is that enough time to get both those guys ready, both of them to be right before a playoff push?
It's possible, unlikely. They may bring him back and piggyback him. You know, deGrom, you start off going 3 innings. Syndergaard, you go 3 and go back-to-back and do it that way. It's okay to dream because we're at the end of July and we have time. You got 6 weeks to try to get these guys back on the mound. So we'll see. You know, it's just hard to tell with injuries until they're there. But obviously, I think their chances of success making the playoffs and their chances of success when they get there is going to depend on a healthy deGrom, and certainly Syndergaard would help.
For now, they're going to try to cobble together some good starts from guys like Carlos Carrasco. And when they get Trevor Williams, of course, Tylor Megill has been a nice, pleasant surprise for the Mets as well. And of course, you got Marcus Stroman, so try to lock that down until they can get deGrom and Syndergaard back. Meantime, the San Francisco Giants also have a slim lead in their division in the NL West as the Dodgers are hard charging. And the Giants also made a splash, trading for Kris Bryant. Cubs trading away another all-star. Jim, what does this trade mean for San Francisco as they add a quality bat to an already deep lineup?
Yeah, I mean, they really needed to add Bryant, and they didn't give up as an elite prospect as the other teams did in these trades with the Cubs. So Farhan Zaidi, I thought, did the best of all the GMs that were trying to trade for these all-star caliber players. You know, the thing that you love about Bryant is that he can play first base, third base, left field, right field, all average or above, and you can even put him in center field for a period of time. You know, that positional flexibility really helps when there's injuries. And when we get to August and September, you know, we're going to see a record number of injuries just because we're coming off that pandemic year and the wear and tear is going to get to some of these guys. And so Bryant's huge. Now, we all know how great a culture Gabe Kapler and Scotty Harris and Farhan have built in the Giants clubhouse. Chris just adds to that. He's a great clubhouse guy. And the Giants are hoping over the next 2 months that he falls in love with San Francisco, the organization and the city, because they're hoping they could sign him long term. And if he's there for a couple of months and loves it, maybe he'll stay. More importantly, they needed another bat to go with Buster Posey in the middle of the lineup. They've got it. And I think the change of scenery, look, he was in Chicago a long time. I think the change of scenery, being back in a pennant race is going to give him that extra charge, extra adrenaline that he needs. I think you're going to see him produce very well the next couple of months there in Frisco.
And it's also worth mentioning that these guys from the Cubs, I mean, they're winners. I mean, they won a World Series. I mean, he's part of that team. They know how to win. Of course, the Giants have a winning culture as well as they look to make a run at a World Series title atop the NL West. But again, a slim lead there in front of the Dodgers. Another Cubs player heading to a contender is Craig Kimbrel, going from the north side to the south side, joining the first-place White Sox, teaming up with all-star closer Liam Hendriks. Talk about domination. Talk about the rich getting richer. The two of those guys have a combined 48 saves this season, Jim. Would you argue that this is the best back end of a bullpen in baseball?
This is the top two closers in the sport right now, and they're both on the White Sox. They just shortened the game. They made a 9-inning game a 7-inning game. If you're going to beat the Chicago White Sox, you got to do it the first 7 innings. And by the way, they've got 2 starters that are going to finish in the top 5 in Cy Young voting. So if you're going to beat them, it's going to be inning 6. That's when you're going to have to beat this team if you can. Look, they were going to run away with this division, whether or not they made a move or not. This trade was all about improving their chances to win a world championship. The last time I saw a bullpen with with 2 relievers this dominant was the 1990 Reds, and we won the World Series with Rob Dibble, Norm Charlton, and Randy Myers. We had 3 of them, and that's why we won. Without them, we didn't win that World Championship. We swept the Oakland A's in the World Series to get World Series rings. That's what the White Sox have done. This is a significant game changer in October, because when they get to October, the one thing they're going to know, their 8th and 9th inning is going to be better than everybody else's, period. And that's huge. They paid a price to do it, no question about it, but there is no doubt this was a huge trade deadline for Chicago and getting Kimbrel and Hendriks. Now, what's going to be interesting is how Tony La Russa uses them. Are they both going to close? Is one going to set up? Are they going to share the role? Is he going to mix and match? And how are the players going to react to that? How is Kimbrel and Hendriks, who are used to being the guy, how are they going to react to maybe sharing it or one getting it and the other guy becoming a setup reliever? Hopefully they're both going to say, hey, I'm going to put the team first and whatever the manager wants to do. That's what we hope happens, but it doesn't always happen that way. It'll certainly be a narrative that we'll be watching, though.
Well, you know, you just said that these are going to be like 6-inning games for the White Sox, right? Because you're going to turn it over to Craig Kimbrel and Liam Hendriks. So basically what you're saying is here, if we can wager on White Sox game, take the White Sox in the first 5, right? A sneaky little play here on the White Sox.
Oh, absolutely, 100%. Yeah, from a gambling perspective, for sure. And slam dunk, they win the division here. I can't see anybody even coming close to them. They're going to walk away with this thing the next 2 months of the season and just get ready for the postseason. And that's the other big advantage, is when you have 2 impact closers, Tony La Russa can prepare for October. They're going to be the first team to probably clinch a divisional title and a playoff spot. And he's going to be able to sit there and rest everybody properly the month of September. So when they get to October, all of them should be well rested and ready to make a run at trying to win a World Series. Remember, Tony La Russa, as a manager, as a big league manager, the Hall of Famer, has won a World Championship everywhere he's gone except with the White Sox. He has a chance to change that this fall.
Well, the Northsiders traded away 8 players before the deadline. including 3 of their stars, Baez, Bryant, and Anthony Rizzo, who are all free agents after this season. This setting up a big rebuild in Chicago. Got a lot of prospects in return. Jim, what do you make of what the Cubs did at the deadline?
Well, Jed Hoyer did really well. And these trades that he made couldn't have been made last year or the year before because teams just weren't willing to trade that quality of prospects. But he did extremely well. And, you know, when you completely rebuild, it takes somewhere between 5 and 7 years before you can come back and legitimately contend for a world championship. And I think what it did for the Cubs is it took 7 years down to 5, maybe even 4. But they expedited the process because they got 2 really important pieces up the middle now, right? You got Nick Madrigal to play second base starting next year. You'll have him for 5 years. And this is a guy with a high on-base percentage, a good defender, going to create traffic. And then when Armstrong is ready, there's your leadoff hitter and center fielder. So building a team up the middle long term, they got a head start on that at this trade deadline.
Want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis. No yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.